Hi. Welcome back to our very last keynote of the day at DestiCon. We hope you guys have enjoyed this amazing content we've had so far today. And I am just so uniquely thrilled to bring our next guest to the stage. Bush has got an amazing background. He's the Chief Marketing Officer for Visit Lake Charles, Louisiana's playground. And in case you guys didn't know, they went viral a little earlier this year. So I want him to tell you that story, and I'm going to let him take it over from here. And you guys enjoy. And don't forget, tomorrow is a whole other day of new content for DestiCon.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate the opportunity to share with everyone about the things we're doing here at Visit Lake Charles, but also a little bit about my background and my career in travel and tourism. So I'm going to share my screen. There we go. Oops, wait a minute. 1 second. There we go. So we're talking about partnering and marketing is the focus of today's conversation. And for me, this is probably the most important conversation related to marketing because it really is the foundation of so much of what we do in the destination marketing space. So a little bit about me and my tourism journey. I've had the opportunity to work in 6 different destinations over the course of my career. I did not include the years of those destinations that I worked there because I do not want to age myself. But I started off at the Bogart Tourist Commission as the executive director, which is Bogart Pierce is about 45 miles north of Lake Charles. So I started my career in Southwest Louisiana. Experience Ruston was my second stop. I was there for 7.5 years before going to the Macon CBB, just about an hour of Atlanta. And then in 2015, I relocated to Thibodaux, Louisiana, and became the president and CEO of Louisiana Cajun Bayou Tourism, just about an hour south of New Orleans, before going all the way to Spartanburg, South Carolina, to be the Chief Tourism Development Officer for Spartanburg, Inc., which was the Business, Economy, and Tourism Development Agency for Spartanburg County. And then in March of 2022, I made the decision to come back to Louisiana and join the Visit Lake Charles team as the Chief Marketing Officer, and just have been so incredibly happy in this role and with my team. And I'm going to give a shout out to Catherine, who did such an amazing job on her presentation. And one of the funny things is, how do you know you work with people, and how do you know that you and those people are connected? Well, you start to sound alike, and so kind of our presentations are going to be a little bit similar in topic, but I hope to bring out some different points that she didn't touch on as part of this conversation. So the Miss Johnny's Gingerbread House, which again, Catherine talked about in her presentation. Again, I thought some images of what Miss Johnny would be helpful, trying to give you a visual. But this is a business that has been in our community for over 40 years. And that's a testament to the strength and the longevity as part of our community, but had never really worked with Visit Lake Charles as a partner before, which I think is the uniqueness about what we're talking about today. Again, how this all came about with was our PR director, Shalisa, you see eating on the screen, got a request from a journalist about, pies, and if we had anything that would fit her story. And so when we first pitched it, she did not seem interested in the Miss Johnny's Gingerbread House story, but my PR director is very relentless, and so she pitched it to her again and said, "Hey, I think that this is a great opportunity for you guys to showcase something that is different." And again, the connections of that place with Southwest Louisiana. And so Shalisa and Catherine, they go take photographs, take some images, and take some video, and boom, it goes viral, which is, again, such an amazing part of what happened as part of this story. Again, if you were in the last session, Catherine talked about how they just sold out fast from this visit that we made.
Hey, Tim, real quick, I'm just jumping in to let you know your slides aren't moving.
No, it's not supposed to be moving yet.
Okay, good. Just make sure.
And so partnering and marketing, you kind of see the statistics of what happened in the first 5 days. As a result of the video gaining views in 5 hours on TikTok. The next day, when they opened, there was a line out the door, and they were out by 2 p.m. The next day, they sold out by noon. And they have also since created a TikTok account to update their menus and ask frequently asked questions on Facebook to keep up with the demand. Again, you see the social impact there, so I won't spend too much time touching on it, but I want to just really point out that there was zero amount of money spent on what we did other than the time it took for Shalisa and Catherine to go there and take photos and record video of their experiences at Miss Johnny's. So I want to include a little bit of a social comment as well, and I will just comment from Pam Ames that says, "Thank you for sharing Miss Johnny's information. This is a small family-owned business that has managed to survive during the difficult times. You are making a difference to these people." And I felt like for me, that was the most important comment that anybody could make for what we do at Visit Lake Charles, and really for any of our communities, is to be noticed for how we're making a difference. And I think that that's sometimes overlooked in what we're doing, is to realize that, we're marketing also, but we have an opportunity to really impact the community in which we live in by the stories we tell, how we choose to tell them, and how engaged we are with our community based on those facts. So on this, beyond the social media value, what I want to kind of just point out is the comment from Kevin Ames about working with Visit Lake Charles, kind of just really mentioning Catherine and Shalisa and the video that they came in and took. This is a great example of somebody now understanding the power of what we do at Visit Lake Charles. And again, I think all of us as destination marketers have the same opportunity to recognize that power of how we serve and impact our community through the work. And so beyond the social media value, it brought awareness to a minority-owned business within our community, and created awareness to Visit Lake Charles and our role in promoting local businesses to our visitor audience, which is really important. And it created a new ambassador for the CVB DMO. And lastly, it creates a powerful case study for how partnering with your local CVB can support local businesses. Again, that's what we want to take away. So the Miss Johnny's Gingerbread story is really a part of a broader picture that again, Catherine kind of touched on community shared values, and that's really important to me. It's something that was important to me even before it became a topic of conversation in the national landscape of how we really need to be working within our communities and looking at those opportunities to create commonalities with local residents and elected officials. So to be sustainable, destination organizations must go beyond ROI statistics, visitor numbers, and government support, and instead focus on the community that is the center of destination, the residents. And so that's what we're going to spend a lot of our time today talking about this particular topic, the impact of this topic for destination marketing. So coming at community shared value roadmap, you kind of see this again from Destination International: relevance, passion, awareness, transparency, inclusion, engagement, collaboration, innovation, stewardship. For today's conversation, I'm the 5 that I believe are the most important to today's conversation: passion, awareness, transparency, inclusiveness, and engagement. So for me, passion is where it all starts. Passion is the enthusiasm that an organization has for sharing their destination community's story and how that impacts what we do. If you don't love the community that you're working in, then it's hard to be able to tell those stories with passion and heart. And one thing I would say about my team is that, even though not everyone on our team is from Lake Charles, everyone who had joined our team within the last year has really made it their home and understand that really passion and heart is the thing that you lead with in telling the stories of our community. I mean, that really ignites the creativity and the talent and the love of community, because you have to be a part of it. You have to live in it. You have to look for those opportunities to be able to tell those stories with real heart, because again, we're storytellers. We have a kind of a saying around here that this is not brain surgery, it's not rocket science. It's really just promoting your community and trying to shine the best light on that community possible through the stories that we tell. And so, we want to bring awareness to our community as the second part of that focus is to be able to shine the light on our community in the right way, authentically doing so, and creating knowledge of for one's destination, fostering advocacy. Destinations with increased awareness have the responsibility to understand the perception of their own communities. I want to kind of pause right there and just kind of elaborate on that a little bit. For me, is it that for me, in working in the different destinations that I've had a unique opportunity to be able to explore a multitude of communities, and I would often tell people that my superpower is that I see communities for how they can be, not just for how they are. And so I kind of go into it as a visitor mentality when I'm in a place, because I want to showcase those places and those experiences that I see from an awareness standpoint that really get the attention and love that they should, from local residents. I mean, again, a resident and a visitor can look at a community in two different ways and two different things. I think, as a resident, when you live in a place, you just become very apathetic to what's in your community. And so those things don't necessarily have the light that they do for a visitor. But I do think that as a visitor or a marketer, when I'm looking at those things, I want to look at those things through the eyes of the visitor, through the traveler, and be able to think about, well, how can I engage this story in a way that's going to connect not just with my traveler, but also connect with my local audience as well. So transparency, again, transparency is kind of self-explanatory, but we have to be very clear about what we're doing, how we're doing it, and importantly, why does it matter? Again, we're destination marketers, but we also have to be able to market ourselves for what we're doing and how that ties into our community. I think, again, that's one of the biggest mistakes that DMOs make is by not being able to focus on, what we're doing well and how we're part of our communities through the work that we do and the importance that work brings to the elevation of our communities and those who live there. Inclusiveness is, obviously very important. Again, Catherine touched on, being open to exploring different segments of our community. There are places that we have to go that we haven't been. And so, I'm going to touch on that a little bit more in the presentation, but I think it's really important that we are focused on not telling, one segment of our community story, but also telling the broader picture of our story, and including different representation of people, of voices, of stories that could potentially resonate with our audience. One of the things that I tell my team often is that we don't need to always be trying to filter our messaging and try to make it fit the way that we want it to. I think that sometimes we have to be very focused on opening up that message and allowing the visitor to consume those messages for themselves without us being the person going, oh, well, here's the story we want to tell you. But allowing the audience to decide for themselves where they find the value in the stories that we're telling. We just have to be very conscious of telling the stories because that is the role that we have as destination marketers. And lastly, engagement. Again, the most important piece of that in my mind is that we have to be able to engage with our community and be at the table and having discussions about the well-being of our community and our stakeholders and looking at how we look at that through a marketing lens to empower our community to be successful through what we do. So I want to talk a little bit about examples that Visit Lake Charles is doing in this space. So one of the things that we have done is to create different ways in which to engage our community. I'm going to touch on every one of these. So I'll start with the Inspiring Chefs. So the Inspiring Chefs video series was something that we came up with to really focus on 5 different culinary themes of our destination, 5 different individuals who represent different aspects of the Lake Charles story. Mama Retta, who is a local-owned, food artist who fries up some best chicken anywhere in Louisiana, in my opinion. And she literally moved back to Lake Charles after the storm and turned her childhood home into a drive-through chicken restaurant, but also they have other meals throughout the week as well. But she's famous for her fried chicken. Amanda Kuzi, who is the reigning Louisiana seafood queen, who is also a person who's LGBTQ plus individual within our community. And so we also featured her on our inspiration guide. The first time we've ever had a person of that background on our cover before, which again shows our effort to be inclusive within our destination. Then the other gentleman you see on the bottom of that Inspiring Chefs photo is Gus Garden, who owns Area 337. Again, spotlighting his background and his love for food has been a real strength for us in showcasing other cuisines outside of Cajun and Creole. Cajun and Creole are bread and butter of our destination, but I think it's important that we focus on showcasing other foods such as Latin cuisine, so that we're able to be open and welcoming to other cultures within our community, because everybody may not want to do Cajun or Creole food, and if you are a person of a different background, you maybe want to find food within in that destination that fits who you are, and so we have to be open to showcasing those experiences as well. We've started the Louisiana Playground podcast. This podcast started in September. It features our director of content video marketing, Brady Renard, who's holding that chicken down that you see, and Anna Strata, our director of digital strategy and online marketing. And so the Louisiana Playground podcast and has achieved over 1,000 listens at this point already. I think that is remarkable. But one of the highlights of the podcast is that it has really focused on bringing on guests who may not have always had a platform to talk about the things that they love about Southwest Louisiana. Another added point to that is that we have partnered that with a segment called On Be Eats. On Be Eats is really when Anna and Brady go to a local restaurant and talk about it on the podcast. And so we do photos on social, which Catherine manages, and it showcases the different places that they go. So again, we're being open to showcasing those things. And so these are examples of how we're fostering partnership within the destination. Again, the podcast guests are talking about the Fur and Wildlife Festival. They're talking about art. They're talking about food. They're talking about seafood and hunting, all the things that make up our destination. And so with every person that we have a chance to interview and talk to, it's broadening our reach and broadening our relationships with our community, because we're telling more of those stories. And so when you look at the shared values of what we were talking about previously, this is a great example of how we're creating those shared values with our community, because we're doing things that incorporate them as participants in that. And so with our Chuck East Restaurant Week, which is actually starting next week, January 20th through the 29th, that project has over 30 restaurants that are participating in the program. That's no small task by any stretch of the imagination. It took a lot of work on our team to be able to do that. But is that it's allowing us to build new relationships with our audience. So when we talk about partnering and marketing, really begins with our goals is to be able to get out and talk with restaurants and talk with attractions and talk with hotels about what we're doing. So this is a great example of how we're fostering that togetherness within our community because a lot of the restaurants who were included had never worked with Visit Lake Charles before. And so that's where that comes in. It hasn't just been sending out a form and saying, hey, participate. It's been a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, a lot of in-person visits to get restaurants to sign up and be a part of this program. But again, that comes to talking about the benefits of why this is an important program for them to be a part of. Because Visit Lake Charles earns nothing for them participating. Our goal is simply to help them create a customer base and also help them to be successful in a time when there's not a whole lot of people going to restaurants in January, which is kind of early in the year. Very similar to other restaurants weeks around the country. Again, with our inspiration guide with Amanda on the cover, it's a great example of how we're trying to be inclusive within our destination. Because we really see it as an added value that we should be championing again 365 days a year, not just during Black History Month, not doing Gay Pride Month in June, because to me that's what I would consider pandering. And we don't want to pander to our audience. We want to just speak always with an authentic voice that allows us to be able to showcase authentic stories of people, places, and experiences found within our destination. So we've talked about a lot of positive, but I want to spend a little time talking about some of the challenges with connecting with partners. And one of those challenges is everybody does not know who we are. Like many of you guys who are listening, who are in the DMO space, have been around for a long time. But it doesn't mean that every person in our community knows who we are and knows what we are doing. And so, as much as we think that we're leading in that space, sometimes it requires us to really be able to get out of our comfort zones and go to different places. One example I will use is that we were hosting a writer a couple months ago, and we always kind of struggle with finding the right breakfast spot for them to go to. So she took them to a place that was different from places that we normally go. It turned out to be a real hit for the journalist because she got a great meal. We got to meet a new partner. The only thing I would say that I would do differently is that to make sure that we, in future, vet those places before we take a writer to it, because the experience, could have gone totally in the opposite direction. But it was, great on our director of public relations, focus to say, hey, I'm going to try, someplace new that's not typically on our list of places that we go. And that's an example of how we build relationships with our community, is that we have to go places that we haven't been. I think that we show value. And so value is every time there's a story written about a business, are we sharing that story with the business? Are we letting them know the potential value of that story in terms of if you advertised in Southern Living, well, what would that versus this story of what we're doing, here, and equating a monetary value to those things because that's what people understand the importance of dollars and cents and what value that this translates. Also, it's not always easy dealing with partners. With this restaurant month, again, it took a lot of calling, a lot of emailing, a lot of in-person visits, and in some cases, a little bit of stalking to get people to come to the table and be a part of this initial restaurant month promotion. And also, we have to be sensitive to understanding where businesses are. A lot of businesses get calls and they think, well, hey, is somebody always wanting to sell me something? And they don't understand. But one thing I think we have to do a better job of is, again, that engagement point. recognizing that going to a restaurant at 11:30 to talk about restaurant week is probably not the smartest decision to make because they're in the middle of their lunch rush. So if you want to hit a restaurant, then you need to hit them before they open, or you need to hit them, in the afternoon when things have slowed down, so that maybe they have an opportunity to focus on what we're talking about in terms of being a part of something that we're doing. Catherine touched on it in her presentation that we have to establish our partners to enable them to know who we are and what we bring to the table as the destination marketing organization for our community. And again, like I said, we can use the email, we can use phone calls, we can use Zoom, but nothing replaces personal connections. One of the things that I found in every destination I have worked in is that it's not a job where you're sitting behind your desk every day if you think you're going to accomplish something, because that's not the way to go about it. I mean, it really takes, getting out of the office, getting out of your comfort zone, and going to that restaurant or that attraction and introducing yourself and talking to them about what their challenges are, and looking at ways in which we from our side can help them meet those challenges that they're facing. Because when you do that, one, you're not coming asking for something, you're coming with a how can I help you mentality that is important to people. We have to not always be looking for what somebody can do for us. And I'm kind of veering off a little bit, but I would say, in some destinations, we want everything to be free. Well, if we go to a restaurant, we want it to be comped or with a journalist or something along those lines. That's not always the case. I think it's important that when we do go places, that we pay for those things because those businesses recognize, again, dollars and cents. And so we cannot always be looking for the opportunity to what can we get out of this, but what can we give? And if that's paying for a meal or paying for an experience, then we do those things because at the end of the day we can say, well, here's how we supported that business during the year because we brought 15 different fams to them that we paid for, and so they not only made money from that experience, but also from just the coverage of those writers who came to the destination. I'd also say that partner relationships isn't just for the marketing folks. We have a large team here at Visit Lake Charles, but I've not always had a large team. When I was in Lafourche, I had a team of 3 people: a marketing person, a salesperson, and a front desk person. And one of the things that I always said was, hey guys, we all have to be focused on getting out of the office, going to lunch, meeting our partners at different times, because it's important that they see us on a regular basis and not just when we're looking for something. And so if you have salespeople on your team, then they need to get out and meet partners as well, not just hoteliers, but also folks in the restaurant, folks in the attractions, so that we're bringing again a well-rounded perspective to what we're doing as an organization. Because I think it's important that people see us out within the community, because this is how we tackle some of those challenges. This is how we build the relationship. This is how we become a community shared value, by being in our community every single day. We have to focus on those things. I would say that we aren't a membership-based DMO. Visit Lake Charles is not, but we should act like one. Um, you know, I'm not sure if anybody is a membership-based organization on this call or not, but I have just really come to believe in all of my different destinations that I've worked with, some that have been membership-based and some that haven't. Again, maybe membership is not the right word, but definitely partnership model is something that we need to adopt, because every business in our community that serves tourism in some capacity is a part of our tourism community that we should be actively working to promote and actively working to engage with on an ongoing basis. We have to think about how we elevate partners in different ways. And one of the things that I've been talking about a lot is with our restaurant week. We want to grow that. And so the focus of how we grow it really is can we create a dynamic case study of the restaurants who participated in 2023 and tell that story as we again work on that restaurant week later in the year, to be able to think about, well, how do we get more restaurants to participate? Well, it's by telling the story of the success that we had and being able to say, if you're involved, an opportunity for your restaurant to have that same opportunity for success. And again, I think what I would also say is that the Miss Johnny's Gingerbread House is a great example of how we weren't working with this business before, and how we developed a relationship now, and how that relationship will carry into the future. But every video we do is not going to go viral. And it would be great if they did, but every video is not going to go viral. And because they're not, I don't think we should necessarily get caught up in that. I think there's still, again, a story that can be told from every vantage point about anybody that we're working with on social or in our marketing or however that translates. But it's really important that we look at those pieces and say, hey, here's an opportunity for us to connect and work with a partner that we haven't worked with before, but also to be able to really focus on just again telling the destination story. And I think that there's a lot of consistency with that. And so my last point on this particular topic is consistency is key. We have to engage in outreach every day. Is a mistake that I think that where destinations are today is something that we can't really afford to not do. Again, I think the landscape of how DMOs are part of our community, and I won't say I think that COVID changed that. COVID definitely did change that, because they became more focused on, well, how do we help the local restaurants? And that got a lot of attention, particularly when I was in South Carolina, because restaurants were really struggling. And so, city governments and tourism agencies all looked at ways in which they could come up and come up with ways that would support those communities. With that change, we really have an opportunity to really, again, be a community shared value when people look at us and what they see us doing. One other kind of piece to that is that because Visit Lake Charles has such a larger team, we're able to be in a lot of places. And one of the places that we are able to be with our city a lot more than what we have been maybe in the past. And so, we have relationships where we're on different committees within our destination, and not just communities for the sake of being on committees, but communities that are actually engaged in strengthening our community. And so the more times that we're at the table talking about and lending our expertise to particular topics like theater renovations or theater reopenings or downtown development, in the conversation, again, it creates connection with our elected officials, but also with our stakeholders, because I understand the value of what Visit Lake Charles brings to our community as a team as a whole. And we want to have that type of connection because we want people to connect with us on that level, but also they're coming to us asking us to be a part of these conversations, which is, again, the most important part. I've heard it been said, and I will quote Jill Kidder, who is now the president of Visit Baton Rouge, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so we really work hard to be at the table in every single conversation and discussion about destination development, because we recognize that that's how we grow our destination. And so partnering and marketing, takes many, many different shapes. It can take shape in social media. It takes shape in just active, destination marketing, but it also takes shape with restaurants, who are also just super important because they deliver the experiences that people have here. And every person that comes into a business is not a local. And that's something that we have to educate our partners on, is how the marketing that we do bring people into their businesses. And of course, there's ways in which we do that through our partnership with Artico, Arrivalist, and other data platforms, to be able to talk about and look at points of interest of people intersecting with our community. And so that's where we have to, again, work on being clear and making people understand that, hey, just because you don't really know what a person is from doesn't mean that they're not somebody who is from an outside market visiting in. And so, again, with the Miss Johnny's Gingerbread House story, that brought in, outsiders to our community. It brought in people wanting to have their product shipped to them in different places. It opened their business up to opportunities that had not been there before. And so that's where we want to be focused on as we try to meet those challenges of being a destination that partners with our community and marketing. But like I said, it's not always an easy task. It can be very frustrating, and I think all of us who have worked in that space understand that yes, it can be very frustrating dealing with partners, getting them to give you a response to whether they want to be a part of something or whether they don't. But we have to continue to be vigilant and continue to work, because I think a lot of partners just get there. I remember, being in we were down at Cajun Bayou, and the first time I really kind of got out to start visiting with partners. I show up, I'm in a suit. I'm, walking around and saying, "Hey, I'm Timothy Bush, and I'm the executive director of the Bayou Lafourche Convention and Visitor Bureau at the time." And they're looking at me funny, like, "Who is this guy? And what does he want? And what's he trying to sell me?" I guess at that point I looked like a salesperson, so that's probably not the way I should have gone. But that was how we thought tourism people dressed at the time. So now even that landscape is a little bit different than what it was before. But the one thing that I found is that, again, of showing up at every opportunity. It built relationships. We had a restaurant program in Lafourche as well, and I didn't have to twist too many arms to get restaurants to be on board, because over the course of time we built that relationship. And so this partnering and marketing is really a long game strategy and not a short game strategy, because partner opens up, we got to go visit them. And to Catherine's point from her session is that we really have to be focused on going places that we have not been before and telling different aspects of the story. It is not our job to define every story for our visitors. Sometimes we just have to tell it, put it out there, and see how that comes back to us in terms of what visitors or even locals will do with that story. But I'm just really a firm believer in that we have to not be trying to make everything pretty with what we do, because that doesn't speak to authenticity of the experience. And that's, again, a focus of what we want to achieve with partnering in marketing. And that is really it on the topic from me. Happy to take questions. And again, happy to connect with anybody who might be listening, have questions. But I definitely think that this partnering and marketing topic is probably one of the most important, because, again, if we don't have the connection with our destination and with our partners and our destination, it's hard to consider how we can be successful from a 360 vantage point, because we're not taking the time to really connect with the people that we need to connect with on a regular basis. Again, it can't be always when you need something. You just got to pop in, have once in a place, because sometimes it's just enough to be seen in that place for them to know that you're there, so that when you do need to come to them with an opportunity, they're going to be receptive with the opportunity from you.
What a great session, Timothy. I have a question, if that's okay.
Sure.
So, how do you deal with if you're really leaning in and working on your partners and working in the partner marketing from the mom and pops all the way up to the scaled? What do you do when you have a couple of bad apples, like they don't give good service or there's some issues with them? Like, do you ignore that? How do you deal with that?
So like, my audio kind of went for a second. Run it by me one more time.
So let's say you have a handful of businesses are not quite up to par in terms of your brand level and what you need to do as hospitality. How do you deal with them?
I think honestly, I think the way you deal with them is that you particularly if somebody brought you an example of them not being the greatest partner or giving back customer service, I think you have to relay that to your partners so they are aware of it. I mean, since right now we know there are challenges in the service industry. I mean, it's a hard thing right now for a lot of businesses, and people are overworked, don't have enough staff. I mean, all those things are kind of combinations of creating some potential, excuse me, bad service experiences. So I think that we make the partners aware, and we just continue to kind of follow up and check back in and see how things are going. But I think that to be mindful of where we try to direct visitors to. So if there is a place that's giving a bad experience, we're not taking them off our website or anything. I don't know if we necessarily try to send people there in part of our promotional effort, because we want to be a trusted resource as well, and so we have to be careful about that. So it's so honestly, the answer to your question, it's a fine line of how to do that responsibly, because I believe in responsible marketing and making sure that we create an experience for our audience, and also to be mindful of the fact that we at the DMO, we don't control any experience. We're not the ones who serving up the food or doing whatever it is that there is. That's not the part that we serve. Our job is to create the inspiration and create the landscape of what our visitors can experience with our destination. So that's where I think the focus of that really can be.
Yeah, I think that's a really intuitive answer to that, because that's a touchy situation, right? Once you start playing with the partners a little deeper, and then they start kind of holding you accountable for how much business you're sending them. And so I just wanted to kind of hit on that. But yeah, anybody else have any questions? Laura had a kind of a question of what we talked about, which is, can you establish standards that all your partners meet, or is that a role that you can't play in?
Oh, that's a great question, Laura. And, I don't know if I necessarily have the answer to that, but I don't know if I'm smart enough on that. But what I would say is just that we certainly want to create opportunities for businesses to do better through customer services program, through just things that we do that talk about what a guest experience ought to be for a visitor coming into your place of business. Again, because we don't own those experiences, we have no real authority to say to a business, hey, your service sucks. If it doesn't get any better, we're going to take you off our website. I think that would cause more harm than good, but trying to establish, standards that people must meet, I think it's again, probably not the way to go. So I think it's our job just to champion, positive experiences. And also, again, one way to go about it is to say to the folks, again, create case studies of businesses that are doing it well and sharing those with other businesses who maybe aren't doing things so well, to create a culture of here's how we can do something better than what we're doing.
I love that. I love that. Any other questions for Timothy? This was such great stuff. How do people get in touch with you, Timothy, so they can bend your brain just a little bit more?
Yeah, always happy to chat about anything we're doing. Again, I touched on some things, but we are very fortunate. It was a Lake Charles to have the team we have, but a lot of the things that we're doing is not necessarily confined to the fact that we're a bigger organization. Again, when I started my career in Beauregard Parish, I mean, I was a team of 3 executive director at like 26 years old, and really didn't have a clue as to what I was doing. But the one thing that has remained consistent across my entire career is engagement with local partners, engagement with elected officials, and just being a champion of the destination that you are representing. It does not take a team of people, but it takes commitment and it takes time to be able to do those things. And so I think, if there's anything I would like just kind of with today is that you have an opportunity to reshape that every single day. And even if you just go have coffee at a local coffee shop or go have lunch at different place that you normally go to, and just leave a card for somebody, reach out to a restaurant if you see something doing something well that you can talk about. There are so many ways to create engagement with local businesses that require not a whole lot of effort or time to be able to do. But I think we have to really just be uncomfortable being uncomfortable and going into again those different spaces that we're not necessarily going into all the time, to make sure we're fostering those type of relationships and culture within our community. We have to be seen as part of the solution, not part of the problem. And that's really what it comes down to, is a relevancy and an understanding of who we are and the value that we bring. And so if anybody wants to connect on this topic or any other topic, they can reach me at Visit Lake Charles. My email address is tbush@visitlakecharles.org. Also find me on LinkedIn. And I'm always happy to which is probably the only topic I'm love talking about, is destination marketing and the impact of it is. I often tell people that we are in a cult as a community, as a family of tourism professionals, and so nobody else understands that other than people who work in it, right?
Yeah.
And so we uniquely understand the challenges, but also the positives of it. And again, there's a lot of positive, power storytelling that comes from us just listening and being part of our community. I think that even in terms of marketing campaigns, if you're talking to people, you may come up with something that's really dynamic because of something that somebody said in a community conversation. There's a lot of power in that I think that we can add to the discussion that makes us the power, because again, nobody in our community does what we do as destination marketers. They can think that they do, but nobody does what we do every single day. And there's a real power and value in that because we have an expertise and we have a light that really shines and magnifies our community 365 days a year. And I tell my team all the time, when we're home, our website is up and people are engaging on our website. When we are at home, these things that we have work for us all the time. Our social media, all those things are working for us all the time. And so again, we have a light that we can shine on our community. But when we shine that light, it benefits our community partners and creates partnering in marketing, which is the focus of what we're discussing today.
I love that. And I love what you and I were talking about the other day, which is, and you mentioned it again today a lot about getting out of your chair, getting out there and letting people know what you do. Because it's really hard to explain. I think we both found some common ground and neither one of our mothers really know what we do.
No, sit down, just travel. But I mean, I spend a lot of my time, just talking with my team about, hey, what are we promoting on social? What places have we not been to? I mean, and then just make a hit list of places that we want to visit. I mean, again, we may have put a list of 50, but we may only get to 30, and that's okay. But those other 20 get put back on the list for the next year, and we tackle them all. And because, you have, again, so many businesses opening, different things along those lines, look for those commonalities of where you can market and do that. Now, I will say, and Jennifer and Amanda, if she's on, can definitely speak to some of this. But working with local attractions can be hard. Again, some attractions aren't open every day. And so, one of the changes that I've recommended to businesses before is to, hey, well, don't be open on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Nobody's traveling those days. So let's be open on Wednesday and Thursday. Well, I'm sorry, Friday and Saturday, so that you can really kind of create marketing around the fact that you open those days, and hopefully people will come and visit. And again, just look at visitor demographics and look at when people travel, and talk with your hotels about when they're seeing leisure travelers in the hotels can give you a framework for when people should be coming to your destination. Like that doesn't require anything other than a conversation.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of things that you can do in this idea of partnering that again don't cost money, but just take time.
I love it. I love it. Well, you guys know how to get in touch with Timothy if you've got any questions, and I know he loves networking as well. Timothy, thank you so much. Your session, you were perfect for our closing session of day 1 of DestiCon. So if you
Thank you so much.
have any questions, we'll have Timothy's presentation available, the recordings available. Thank you guys so much. It was a great day 1. We hope to see you all bright and early in the morning for day 2. Bye, Tim.
Thank y'all.